We have no apologies.
Thank you. Do we have any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest? No, the members have none. Now, you will have seen in the papers that you will have been given page 1 and 2 outlining the format that we'll be working to today. I'm assuming everybody's had a copy of these papers, but we'll guide you through it anyway, so don't worry too much about it. And by that, we start off by the statutory licence subcommittee procedure, which I've just explained. And what we'll do now is we'll go to the officer, will outline to us what the applicant is asking for, and we'll take it one step at a time. If there are any questions for the officer, that's when the committee will ask them. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So the premises is Dunvan RFC on Broadacre, Calais, Swansea, SA27RU. Applicant Dunvan RFC. The application is for a new premises licence. An application for a new premises licence was received by this authority on the 3rd of May 2023. The applicant has applied for a premises licence to allow the following licensable activities to take place: performance of live music, playback of recorded music, and performance of dance. All activities Monday to Thursday, 2300 hours to midnight, and Friday to Sunday, 2300 hours to 0100 hours. Late night refreshment, Monday to Thursday, 2300 hours to midnight, and Friday to Sunday, 2300 hours to 1:30 a.m. Supply of alcohol, Monday to Thursday, 0800 hours to 23:30 hours, and Friday to Sunday, 0800 hours to 0100 hours. A copy of the application and plan is attached to Appendix A, which can be found on pages 7 to 32 of your agenda pack, and A1, which can be found on page 33. Background. Premises is a rugby and football club who currently operate on a club premises certificate. The club is licensed for the following licensable activities: performance of plays, exhibition of films, indoor sporting events, performance of live music, playback of recorded music, performance of dance, activity like music/dance, supply of alcohol, sale of alcohol to guest. All activities Sunday to Wednesday, 0800 hours to midnight, and Thursday to Saturday, 0800 hours to 0100 hours. Copy of the club premises certificate and plan is attached to Appendix B, which can be found on pages 34 to 40, and Appendix B1, pages 41 to 42. A location plan is attached to Appendix B2, which can be found on page 43. A list of licensed premises in the area is attached to Appendix B3, which can be found on pages 44 to 46. Promotion of the licensing objectives. The Licensing Act 2003 contains 4 licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. Each of these objectives is of equal importance, and the application must demonstrate how they are to be promoted. Conditions which are consistent with the operating schedule and will be attached to the licence if granted are attached to Appendix C, which can be found on pages 45 to 46. Relevant representations. There were no representations received other than by other persons. Representations have been received from 12 other persons. Representations in support of the application have been received from 4 other persons. A copy of the representations are attached to Appendix D, which can be found on pages 47 to 59. A copy of the representations in support are attached to Appendix D1, which can be found on pages 60 to 61. Policy considerations. Considering this application, members should have regard to the current statement of licensing policy, the policy which can be found at the following link in your agenda pack. Guidance issued by the Home Secretary. Members should also have regard to the relevant parts of the current statutory guidance, the guidance issued by the Home Secretary in December 2022, in particular, Introduction Chapter 1, Licensing Objectives Chapter 2, applications for premises licenses, Chapter 8, determining applications, Chapter 9, conditions attached to premises licenses, Chapter 10, statement of licensing policy, Chapter 14, and regulated entertainment, Chapter 16. A link to the full guidance can be found in your agenda pack. Determination of the application. The decision must be based on the individual merits of the application and the representations received, with a view to promoting the licensing objectives outlined in paragraph 5 of the report. In arriving at the decision, members should also have regard to the relevant provisions of the policy and the guidance as previously provided. Reasons must be provided for any departures from the policy or guidance. In reaching the decision, the committee must, having regard to the representation, take such steps mentioned below, if any, as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. A. Grant the licence subject to conditions that reflect the operating schedule, modified to such an extent as the authority considers appropriate for promotion of the licensing objectives. Certain regulated entertainment under the Licensing Act 2003 as amended has been deregulated. Where entertainment is deregulated but licensable activities continue to take place on any premises, any licence conditions imposed on a grant of a licence in respect of any deregulated entertainment will be suspended. Any mandatory conditions relevant to the licence. B. Exclude any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. C. Refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor. And D. Reject the application. In view of the representations received, the licensing subcommittee's instructions are requested.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Can I have a point of clarification, if I may? Would you mind? I'm not, no, I need to know who the solicitor is, please. First of all, we haven't been introduced.
Good morning, ma'am. Councillor Jones?
Yes.
So, nice to meet you. I'm Craig Davis. I'm the legal advisor for the council.
May I ask him if his brother is
No.
currently on any of the committees of the rugby club? Because we understand that he definitely was one, and I just wanted to clear it up for the actual committee.
I'll
Thank
deal
you.
with this, Mr. Rees. No, Miss Jones, Councillor Jones. I don't know. I haven't spoken to my brother for over 5 years. It's a personal matter. I'd rather not have brought this up. It's also not the time to deal with this point. The officers dealing with that.
Sorry, it would be if you had a close personal connection.
There we
That's what
are.
I was
I think
trying
I've
to find out.
clarified.
Thank you.
Yes.
The police and none of the responsible authorities have come through. So now we're going to invite the representatives of other persons who have put in objections to make their point. And with your permission, we'll start with the two councillors. Is that okay? Thank you. Mary, do you want to go first? Yeah.
That's the first. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. I've written some notes if I can actually read from them. I'm actually here today after being asked by local residents to support their concerns about the licensing application. Whilst I support the efforts carried out by the rugby club, such efforts come with a responsibility to the community. Prior to the wards of Dunvan and Calais merging, I represented Calais South Ward for 14 years, which abutted the club, and received complaints from some local residents as to noise, disruption, and the speed of traffic coming and going from the club. Prior to the council election in 2022, with Councillor Mary Jones and myself, from a pool community budget, paid for the speed bumps to be replaced and increased in height in order to along Broadway, in order to reduce the speed of traffic. Broadacre, my apologies. Concerns were also raised that vehicles were also not stopping at the junction of the road from the club to Broadacre, which of course was a safety concern for residents, including children. I did raise these points and these problems actually with one of the committee members, Paul Loughlin, who stated that he would raise the issues with committee members and members alike. As perhaps a separate and important issue, and whilst I'm sure that there is support for the club, in the area and outside of the area, there are some ongoing large events, Guy Fawkes music festivals, that are already generating the present licence a number of complaints of vehicles which often park outside of the club grounds to avoid parking charges or space restrictions. These complaints include residents not being able to access or egress their drives, home carers not being able to get to their clients, and of course the issue of emergency vehicle access. I highlight these issues to identify just some of the problems that residents encounter. Returning to this licence application, the concerns are that these problems will multiply with what could be open access, and I would ask the committee to keeping the present licence conditions actually in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Does Councillor Mary want to say anything, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've only got a few points to make, but mine are more of an issue with the actual agenda and how we explain to residents exactly what it is they're here for today. If we go back to, I think the licensing officer outlined about the licence, and then from 11 till midnight and 11 until 1. And could they please expand on the reason that the club can already do these things until 11, but they're not actually asking for extra hours. They're actually asking for a difference between a member's licence and a premises licence, for what I understand, but the hours are exactly the same as they have now. And also on Appendix A1, it's difficult to see in the agenda because it's black and white, but if you've looked online, it shows areas outlined in red and it says personal licence, and areas outlined in green is certified area, which is the lounges, and maybe we can clear up a little bit of confusion that way. But also the club is a very, very well-run club in that they look after the young people. They put on events for them, which obviously has an impact on the surrounding area. Broadacre and Oakdean are cul-de-sacs, and there is only one way in and out of Broadacre, which causes a major problem. That's with motor access. There is access for people to walk up the cycle path, but in the evenings, in the winter, they certainly won't be doing that. But they actually are disproportionately affected by anybody coming and going from the club. We have to ensure that concerns are taken into consideration, because they're not new concerns. These have gone on for a number of years, and I wish that the committee will take this into account, that the fact is that residents have nowhere else to go. It's their homes. The club need to work and coexist with them, but I think they need to do it in a better manner sometimes, especially when residents have actually complained to them, and maybe the residents' complaints are not taken on board. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, I don't know who would like to speak next. Should we go to the gentleman on the end? Is that okay?
Ma'am,
Sorry.
Councillor Jones, in part of the representation, asked for clarification, and in fact, in part of your representation, brought clarification, because it appears that in some of the representations there is a confusion, but I do think you understand it. However, what you've commented on and what you've asked the officers to comment on is what is, as you said, in black and white. And you commented on the plan showing the red lines. In my mind, what you said is correct as to a representation as what is on the paperwork. Officers, do you want to add anything in light of what Councillor Jones has stated?
So to clarify between what a club certificate is and a premises license. A club is quite restricted in that it's a members only. So you have to be a paying member. It's not accessible to the public like a pub would. It's controlled by a committee. There's not as many restrictions. There's not one person who's responsible for the premises, whereas a premises license is accessible to members of the public, and there is one person who would be, in this case, it would be the designated premises supervisor, who would be responsible for the day-to-day running for the sale of alcohol. And as I said, it is accessible to the public. We have slightly more control over it in terms of the conditions we put on the license, etc. And the green area you've referred to on the plan, that would be covered under the club certificate, and that would only be accessible to members.
Okay, has that clarified things for you, please?
Thank you, Chair. I had actually obviously spoken to the licensing officer, but the application wasn't very clear for people that don't understand licensing, if I can put, and myself included. I haven't sat on this committee for years and things change. Also, why it's from 11 till midnight and 11 till 1, why they're allowed to have certain events up until 11 p.m. without any restrictions, and then all of a sudden they have to have a license for the next bit, which I know the answer to obviously, but I'm not sure if the residents do.
Again, you're answering your own question, but I think it's for your benefit, essentially. Certain licensable activities were deregularized, so therefore you can play loud music and you can live music and amplified music up until 11 p.m. So you don't need the license up to there. So that's the point the council is making. So effectively, this license is from 11 until 12 or until whatever the application is. So some people get confused on that point. And perhaps I'll go as far as to say they think that the applications are changing when an application morphs from a club license to a normal license. And in effect, if you compare them both, it appears that the license, the hours on, I think, on a Thursday to the Sunday might be different, but effectively it's a morph from a members to a club. I'll pause because you haven't heard from the applicant and we haven't heard from all of you at this point. And it may be that at the end, when there are points of clarification, it becomes clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is the first I've heard about this mixture of licensed and members. And my name is Kevin Munson. I'm a resident of Broadacre.
Mr. Munson, did you notify the licensing officers that you're going to speak today?
I was invited here by the licensing officer because I made a representation.
Just checking with us.
Okay. Don't know if he's been redacted. All right.
I was sent an email from Anne, someone, Anne David,
There we are.
and that email notified me of the hearing. But I didn't know I had to return a document. Well, I wasn't aware of that. Sorry, I didn't read that. You know. Okay, thank you. And I don't understand how a club and a licensed premises can coexist in the same building, but you'll explain that to us, I'm sure, you know, as the thing goes on. But my worry about this application is the extension of the hours. You know, we are a residential area, and at the moment we accept that on match days and weekends there is going to be some disruption. You know, we bought houses close to a rugby club, and you know, we know that might happen. Our worry, or my worry, is that if it turns into a licensed premises and is open, for anyone, that, you know, the club now will try and fill 52 weeks of the year up with money-making events. And up until 2:30 in the morning on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, that's going to affect our standard of life, our sleeping and everything else. You know, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that, because that's what happens now. I mean, for an example, you know, I don't believe that the club abide by the licensing hours they've been given anyway. I mean, I'm surprised that the police haven't had a representation here, because they have been called on a number of occasions. And as I outlined in my representation, last year, my neighbour's van got damaged to the tune of £1,500. The police were involved. I'm surprised they haven't highlighted incidents like this. You know, and that damage was videoed by CCTV occurring at 1 to 2 in the morning. And that person had been drinking in the club until that time, left with his girlfriend, and damaged the van on the way out of Broadacre. No, there was no drinking until 1:30 in that time. No, they just don't abide by the rules. And I feel in this case, they may not again. But as has been explained by the licensing officer, once they become a licensed premises, the police have a little bit more actionable work to do. I was a police officer for 30 years, you know, and I accept that they'll have to have things like bouncers on the door and stuff like that to regulate behaviour. But it's the drunkenness of people leaving is the issue, you know, and nowadays it's part of their license. You don't serve drunken people. But some of the state of these people leaving the club, it's quite obvious that they are way over the top drunkenness, and they've just been continued to be served alcohol. I read in the application as well that there's a plan to only have under 18 supervised after 9 p.m. Who is going to supervise them? An 18-year-old supervising under 18s? You know, it doesn't seem workable, you know. And also then having people at the moment, if something happens, we can go down to the club and speak to committee members. They'll look on CCTV. If they identify people, then they'll have a word. All right. Nothing much gets done, but they have a word. Nowadays, if it becomes a licensed premises, anyone can be there. They won't know, and they won't know the person from Adam. So any problems which occur in the street, you know, won't be traceable, you know. And you know, whereas that's the same with any other licensed premises, I'm sure. But that not every other licensed premises is everyone walks up a purely residential road. You know, then there's only one way out. You know, the other licensed premises in Calais, when you walk out the front door, you can go right or left. You know, so half the population will go one way, half the population the other, presumably. You know, here everyone has to come through Broadacre, and at times the behaviour is unacceptable. I contacted the licensing department during lockdown in relation to the club opening the Sin Bin bar in their car park. Now, to my mind, when you open a bar in a car park during lockdown, you know, they need to make money, open air, fine. But then they put signposts out on the cycle path inviting anyone to come in and have a drink. Now, that is, I thought, in contravention of their license. I contacted licensing and they agreed it was, but it wasn't shut down. No, to me, the Dunford Rugby Club just don't care about licensing rules, and they will just go on doing what they do. And my worry is that once they get to being able to open until 1, at the moment they're still serving at 5 to 2, you know, they'll just carry on. You know, so that's my worry. I'm sorry.
Can I ask the officers, with regard to the lockdown and the gentleman's complaint, Was the club spoken to? Do we know? Do we have a record?
Got to be honest there, Chair, we dealt with thousands of complaints over lockdown, a very small team. Can imagine the pressures we were under. That was something we'd have to look into. I wouldn't know off the top of my head, and that's not honestly, sorry.
I can answer that.
I think for the applicant, you should wait and save your answers.
Okay.
Wait.
Trying to remember them all is going to be difficult though,
No.
because I'm trying to make notes of every point, but obviously there's a lot of them to cover.
I was going to deal with the point as to serving alcohol during lockdown. Yes, because there was a deregulation at that point as well, and a change in the law to allow external off sales. You may have recalled other areas in Swansea, in SA1, I think they were doing it in Uplands and in Clay. They were doing external sales, so people weren't going into the buildings themselves. So they were allowed to do off sales in those places. There is another point you raised, which I will question at the end, but effectively it was a members club at that point, not a normal license. But nevertheless, something that I perhaps do want to say in relation to the representations, this is an application ordinarily you'd say on its own merits, and you wouldn't look back at points, but all representations are taken by the committee and they will take it all into account. But it is still on its merits. But please also ensure that your representations relate to the full licensing objectives. Traffic matters probably don't fall under that remit. That's just some slight direction to you for anyone else to come, to your benefit, really.
Thank you for that. We've got a lady mentioned here, Diane Matthews. Okay, Ms Matthews, would you like to speak next, please?
Hello. Well, I mean, I don't object to the club at all for the children and all the different, and you know, we've got to put up with the traffic in the daytime or early evening or whatever. If there's anything special on, we wouldn't mind that, of you know, of a bank holiday or anything going on like that. But I still work. Sean still works. I got to get up at 6:30 in the morning, and I can hear noise from that club at 1 or 1:30 in the morning, even later. There's taxis driving back and forth. There's people waiting on the corner when they come up and they join onto Broadacre, waiting, gangs of people going up the street shouting and singing and whatever. You know, 1:30 in the morning, it's not, you know, we shouldn't have to put up with that. As I said, I don't mind like the bank holidays and things where there's special, you know, things on and they've got to, you know, they close the road off for so many, whatever, and the traffic, but it's in the night time. And when we are, if it's a summer evening and we're often out our garden, we don't have to go over to hear the music because it's really, really loud. And the thing is, when we go into the house, then we've got to shut the windows because you can't hear the TV. It's that loud, the music is. Well, surely music at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and if you want it till 1 o'clock in the morning, how are we going to sleep in the night? And how are we going to get up for work? You know, and if it's this going on a Sunday night, how are we going to get up for work on a Monday morning? So it's, you know, it's the traffic, the noise of people. And as I said, it's just not, it's a residential, it's one road in, one road out. If they want to make it a club, well, they'll have to have another access for people to get out. You know, they can't be going in up and down. And when pubs and things like the Black Boy or the Commercial close, the Hungry Horse at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to be coming down Broadacre to go because they know they're going to sell alcohol then until 1:30 in the morning. So for the last 2 hours, which they're going to come down drunk and they're going to go home really drunk going up to Broadacre. So really, it'll be like a night, it'll end up being like a nightclub. Whereas when you're in town, you go from a pub, well, it used to when I might go from a pub to a nightclub. And that's what will happen down Dunban Rugby Club. So that's why we'd objected.
I've made some notes here. We've got next Nick Alexander.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Alexander, if you'd like to raise your objection, please.
Just to echo what Di said, really, that it's not a city centre or an industrial estate. It's a residential area, and that 11 o'clock is late enough when people are working. They've got young families. We've got 2 kids. There's a lot of kids in the roundabout, and that's if it's stopped serving at 11, they're going to get closed by what, midnight? Midnight's late enough for a lot of noise. If it goes on till 1 o'clock in the morning, people will be leaving at 2, 2:30. It's too late for a residential area. That's the main point, really, that it's just in the wrong area for this kind of license.
Thank you for that. Is that all you'd like to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr.
Yeah.
Alexander.
I've got a
Made notes, and we will give them consideration.
Ma'am,
I've got a video, if that's any help, of people leaving at midnight. I mean, it's supposed to close at 11, but it's obviously gone until gone midnight. As if that's any help.
Like Alexander took the words out of my mouth. I pressed the button to remind you that you had prepared the video. And my comment was going to be that the video has been shared around the members.
Okay.
And the representations, have you had sight of the video? Okay, but the members who will make the decision have seen it. It was commented on this morning. And I should say this, that all of the representations that are in the bundle have been reviewed and will be taken into consideration by the members. And as I said, as will your video.
Yeah, it's not particularly outlandish behaviour or anything. It's just people leaving. But when they've had a few drinks at midnight, people are loud and they're not thinking about people trying to sleep. It's not damage or it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's just it's going to be much later. If the license finishes another hour and a half later, it'll be much further into the middle of the night. That's the point. It's just unacceptable for the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alexander. We've got
Thank
now
you.
Sian Thomas. Okay, Mr.
I think for me, it's just about reasonableness. Yeah, sure. I think for me, it's just about reasonableness. Everyone I've mentioned this to that I work with, they're like, oh, that's like nightclub hours and that's right by your house and that's not reasonable. And all the other rugby clubs I go to, if I'm on a staff do, I've been to Uplands Rugby Club, St Helens Rugby Club. If you go to Mumbles Yacht Club, if you go to Mumbles Cricket Club, they're all shut by 12. We're all asked to leave and we're all asked to leave quietly. And I just think it's about being neighbourly. I think we're cracking neighbours to the rugby club. We don't complain. We clear up the broken bottles on a Sunday morning if they're smashed in our street. I walk down and pick up the tins of empty alcohol tins left down the side of the cycle path. And you know, I think we're really lovely people to live alongside. And I think that the rugby club has up till now been reasonably considerate of us as far as possible, but that feels like it's changing. And I think that they have a responsibility to be good neighbours just as we are. And I can only echo what Di said. The rugby club is in a basin, it's in a valley. It's like a natural amphitheatre. And you can hear all the noise from it in Upper Killee. I've got a colleague who lives the opposite side of the valley from me on the main road up by Killar School. He hears it all, we hear it all, because the noise rolls up the side of the hill. So if there's music going on, Di's right, you can hear it in the house. If it's going to be going on later, that will impede our ability to sleep. And there are 7 children under the age of 5 living on the cul-de-sac. A number of us work, a number of us work for the council. And I just don't think it's reasonable to extend the hours in that location to the extent that they want them extended, and that we as neighbours need to be considered.
Thank you for that.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so just to clear up the first point, I've made some notes. We currently have to close at 11 p.m. That's what you all seem to think. Our current license allows us to stay open to 1:45 a.m. That's what our current license. Here it is, okay? Our current member's license. To make one point absolutely clear, we've done this on the advice of licensing. We've actually reduced our hours in the new license. We probably shut last weekend, for example. I locked up on Friday and Saturday. Everyone was out and done by 10 o'clock. Sunday, we were closed by 4 p.m. Okay, our chairman's had 2 phone calls on Sundays complaining about the noise. We haven't even been open. One of you mentioned we're in a valley. There's other pubs that play music. It goes up and down the valley and echoes. I'm not saying it's always us not doing it. We have some main events at the rugby club, which is fireworks night, D-Fest and the rugby festival. I guarantee you virtually all your complaints will relate to those 4 days of the year. Without those 4 days of the year, there would not be a rugby club, to be absolutely clear. Would anyone like to guess how much it costs to open the doors to a rugby club for 12 months, 13 acres, to maintain that, to pay the staff? And that's not even counting the countless hours of labour from volunteers such as myself. Someone like to take a guess? Last year, this is before the energy crisis, it cost £100,000 to maintain the facilities. The only place we get money from is by people buying a drink behind that bar. Without that, there is no club and there is nothing for the children. So everyone does have to understand that. The majority of the time, of the 365 days of the year, we are closed before 10 o'clock. That is the majority. I appreciate that the occasions where you hear the noise or you hear it is late, likely be on those occasions, okay? There are some others that it happens if we rent the club out for a birthday party, things like that, okay? But the majority of those 365 days, we shut well before 10 o'clock, and that's a fact. I wish I'd recorded it over the last 12 months. So we were asked to change our license, okay? Particularly, we didn't want the work involved. I don't really want to be here today doing this, but licensing asked us to change our license. And the main reason they did that is for these events. So under our current license, members license, what that means is no one can come to the rugby club unless they are a member or known to a member or a visiting rugby team, and any person then known to that rugby team is allowed to come. So for example, if we play Bonamine, they can bring 2,000 people and it's their responsibility to identify if there's a problem. Whereas if it's one of our members or known to our members, it's our responsibility to identify that person, okay? So licensing have asked us to change because they are saying when we have an event such as Guy Fawkes, how do we know who's a member and who's not and who's a friend of? Well, the bottom line is no one comes to that club unless we know them. And what we've got to do currently on the likes of Bonfire Night, if that person is not known to us, we don't serve them alcohol. So we cannot serve anybody alcohol unless they are known to a member. So what happens then? Kids we turn away decide to go and drink in the streets, and this is where the cans. We don't sell cans in the rugby club. We don't sell cans as part of our agreement with Cause. So any cans you find, they've been bought elsewhere and drunk elsewhere. Because if we catch anyone drinking cans on premises, they leave the premises. You mentioned Paul Loughlin and things not being followed up. Paul hasn't been with us for a year now. God rest him. He has stood down. Was suffering with a condition, but we've got a new secretary in place now. Has been there for 11 months. We had a complaint 2 days ago from someone in Broadacre from a late finish. As soon as that complaint was received, we looked at the CCTV. We identified the person. They've been spoken to. The vice chairman contacted the person who called us in and explained that we do know who it is and we've spoken to them. We do our best. The incident that was mentioned at 2 p.m. when our license is to 1:45, the police came down because somebody had gone to the car asking us if we could identify that person. The police officer, I was the person in the room, so this isn't second, third hand. This is the policeman was speaking to myself. And the policeman said, could you ask this person to contact all the guy wants? He doesn't want to press charges, he just wants it paid for. I said, absolutely, I can do that. The very next day he was contacted and the damage was paid for. Whenever police have asked us for a CCTV footage of anything, we've always given it. That's probably why the police aren't here today, because we've always been extremely cooperative with anything that they've asked of us. They also help us look after premises. We can't always be there, and we do have problems with kids going in the stands, drinking late at night, cans, when there's no one there. Now, there is the most popular way home through Broadmead. There is another exit, for example, you can go down the cycle track. If I walk home from the rugby club, I don't go up that way because I live in Thol Road. It's quite a lot of people who do live in proper Dunvant, as we call it, right? Not Calais. So there is quite a lot of people that can escape that way. What other points need picking up? So, you know, when we look into have this license to be able to serve people then, and it's only for these events, right? People come to Dunvant Rugby Club because we put an event on. Or we put rugby on. Without rugby or an event, nobody comes apart from the likes of the committee who meet up for a drink. We got no intention of putting any more events on. No intention whatsoever. We've got our Guy Fawkes, we've got our D-Fest, and we've got a rugby festival. And those events bump up the finances enough for us to survive. We have no intention of creating any more large events. Okay. Yes, we will allow functions, etc., birthday parties, 70th birthday parties, 50th, because that helps the income come along also. But fundamentally, probably 340 days of the year we're shut before 10. I mean, that's a guess, but I won't be far off. Is there any other points that I may have missed? I've tried to remember everything you guys have said, but I'm not 100% sure if I've covered everyone because, of course, quite a few of you spoke, and I was trying to remember each of the complaints as we went along.
Sunday opening seems to be a major concern to people that are working. Would you be prepared to look again at the hours you're requesting?
I've got to be honest, we have just sort of, the current licensing hours that we have just sort of shaved time off that. Sundays, we don't open late on Sundays. I can't remember the last time we did. I really can't. I genuinely believe if there's other pubs where people drink on a Sunday, the Railway, for example, they walk up, they cut across the club. I genuinely, I'm trying to think the last time we opened late on a Sunday because Friday, you know, we're all the committee men can't be there because we're working late the next day. Sundays is a very quiet day for the rugby club, apart from when there's rugby on in the mornings. So I can't remember the last time we had any sort of event on late on a Sunday.
Chair, pardon me, we have Nick Alexander wishing to speak. He's raised his hand.
You were talking about previous events that have happened up to now, but the concern is what's going to happen in the future. And the license is extending, and the music license as well, going on till late at night. I mean, there's obviously a reason to apply
Mr.
for a music
Alexander,
license.
we're in the middle of the applicant's opportunity to speak and for the members too. Ms. Thomas did raise her hand to speak and I asked her to wait. Could you do the same as well, please?
Oh, we did.
Didn't somebody just mention my name?
Sunday.
Yeah.
Are you going to consider moving your hours to accommodate as a good neighbour?
Yeah, look, as I say, nothing happens on a Sunday. It hasn't for, I'd love to check with other committee members to say when we did the last time we did anything on a Sunday. We're usually shut by 4 o'clock on a Sunday. And we don't tend to have any events on because it's Monday the next day. Possibly a bank holiday Sunday. I wouldn't count a bank holiday Sunday, obviously, because it's you know, it's a bank holiday, isn't it? That, you know, that would be the Monday where would turns into Sunday, doesn't it? I guess that would be my only issue, because let's say we did put an event on a bank holiday Sunday, that reducing our hours may affect our ability to do so. Yeah. Listen, we've got no real intention to do things on a Sunday when we're all, virtually all the committee now are my sort of age and we all work Mondays. No one's got the aptitude to be there late on a Sunday.
Mr. Rees, I can assess when an applicant makes an application, if during today's committee, one of the representatives bring up a point which is a good point, which is agreeable to yourself, or one of the members comments on a modification to your application, it's something that can certainly be done. If it is your view and you have the authority to do so, and you wish to reduce your Sunday hours, it's for you to say, but perhaps in line with what your members' license is for a Sunday. The point you then raised regarding bank holidays, I do believe it's within your application that on a bank holiday you can open for additional hour in any event, so it would return it to what this application is for those days of the year. It's a matter for you. What happens is shortly there'll be a further opportunity just for, well, final comment. Perhaps ponder what I've just said, and then in the conclusion you can put anything forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we run as a committee, so I'm here to explain our case. This would have to be a committee decision if we were to make any changes to the application, obviously, or certainly an officer's decision, which would be myself and 4 other people. So, you know, I can't see any issue, but I would need to sit with those guys for them to agree.
In the outside area. It's about the movement of bottles.
Mm.
11 o'clock at night.
Mm.
I think that's far too late.
Sorry, say that again.
That, in my opinion, is far too late. 11 o'clock at night.
Could you just say
To move bottles.
move bottles?
Yeah, it's no rubbish, including bottles, should be moved, removed, or placed in the outside areas between 2300 hours and 8 a.m.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about our waste. All right, okay, so you're talking about when we, at the end of it, of shift, when we,
Yes.
well, I'm with you, okay.
So 11 o'clock is far too late in a residential area to go moving bottles.
Oh, look, that's just something that's overlooked. That's certainly something that can be worked on.
To agree, Kat,
Yeah,
and I would suggest 9 o'clock.
okay.
So between 9 at night and 8 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
nothing will be moved.
Yeah,
So
I think what we're referring to there
Yes,
is when
but-
we empty into the bottle bin. Yeah,
Because they make a tremendous.
they do.
noise.
Yeah,
No.
I agree. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
I preempted the committee because I was the question. Apology.
It's okay.
So if it's going to be open to non-members under the change, would that mean that you're going to be having like 18th birthday parties there, which will be a bit of a nightmare, frankly? And are there going to be more public parties being held with people arriving maybe on coaches? And would there be people, the overspill then from the pubs in Calais, as Di's mentioned, strolling down for a couple of pints at the end of the evening? I just want to know what the implications would be for us if you change the nature of your license.
Okay. Please don't ask me too many questions at a time. I don't mind going back and forth, but I haven't got the mental capacity to remember them all. So 18th birthday parties, absolutely not. We don't do 18th birthday parties. They are an absolute nightmare. Okay, so we haven't done them for many, many years, and we certainly don't intend to, because you cannot police them, because some are 18, some are under, and there's all false IDs and everything. So no intention of 18th birthday parties. No, we currently, if somebody wants to apply for a party, there has to be members involved. Okay, because our current license means that we can't serve anyone unless we know them or they're known by a member. We've got no intention of extending that apart from our main events. If someone books a party, it's because they know us. You know, it's not the sort of place, oh, let's go and book a party at Dunman Rugby Club. They book it because they know the club, they know the facilities. And, you know, again, we don't have many parties, and usually they're older birthday parties, and they finish at reasonable times.
Was if you
We would already be shut by then, I would imagine, because unfortunately for us, no one wanders the Dunman Rugby Club for a quick drink. because we're so far out the way. If we put a function on, they come. If there's rugby on, they come. But I certainly don't expect nobody. We currently could open until 1:45, but we don't because nobody has any intention to come down and have a pint from the Hungry Horse. In fact, what does happen is we've got a couple of loyal guys that will come down. They don't want to walk home late at night, so they leave us. They'll come down for a couple of drinks and leave us long before 11 o'clock, and they finish up in the Black Boy or the Hungry Horse. Nobody comes down to us from any other pub, never has.
Yes, actually on that point, the lady actually picked up about people, people may not come down at the present time. But when the word gets around that it's going to be non-members, shall we say, can actually come there for a drink, what would you actually do then? That people started to, word soon gets around Calais and Dunvan,
I don't believe there's very many people in Calais or Dunvan that frequent drinking establishments that isn't known by a member of the committee. And if anyone does turn up, even with this new license, we don't. Anyone who walks in the door, we will get to know them, and they become a member because we're trying to, we're trying. Membership is money in our pockets to pay the bills.
Yeah, I appreciate the club's got to get money, and so on. But, the concerns are that things may, escalate. You're actually talking about off sales as well, that you will be allowed to. We actually live by a petrol station that actually decided to sell off sales. It caused us a nightmare through the night. We had cars coming at 3:30 in the morning, screeching, shouting, and so on. The last thing, I think what people are really, really concerned about is that, they've got problems down there. I don't think anybody can, deny that. They don't really want to see the problems getting worse. You mentioned as well about the, the Guy Fawkes days. I know they're a big generator to you and so on. It does cause problems around the area, with parking and so on, because they're so popular, and
it's like when the Ospreys have a game of rugby, the people are going to go and watch that, or Swans have a game of rugby. There's difficulty parking all around there. I like the fact that people, when they get a car parked across their drive, ring us. Can you imagine that happening in the Ospreys? Or the Swans, or someone's parking, they ring us, and we had a phone call, the recent festival. Stuart, we found that person, that car was moved immediately. I'd love to see that happening with the Swans or the Ospreys or Manchester United. No, not a chance, is there? Not a chance.
No, but it is Calais, and it's something, it needs to be tackled. I would hope the club can
Well,
work,
I mean,
with
as
ourselves.
Craig pointed out, the parking, right, is something we can help with, but it can't be held as our responsibility. It's something we will help because we choose to help.
Can I just clarify one point? The current member's license allows off sales already.
Yeah, but it's to members only, and if you open it to the public, yes, they can come down and use the off sales. So that was a little bit of a red herring, because although it has off sales, it's only members that can use the off sales, as I understand it. Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
I would be amazed if anyone comes down to Dunvan for off sales. There's plenty of other places in Calais where they can go for their off sales. Unless we know people in Dunvan, we won't serve them.
Sorry, can I finish? Yeah, I know. Can I finish my point before? Right. We're not talking about what's happening now. We're talking about what might happen in the future. And this is the point of this hearing today, is not what's happened, it's what the residents are really concerned about will happen in the future. They are concerned that you will be able to sell to any member of the public that's over the age of 18 that can come into your premises when you're open and buy alcohol either for on sales or off sales. And to do with the parking, it is a real massive issue, because the last event you had, which I think was some Challenge Cup, because you were charging so much for the car park, people were then looking for alternate places to park. And I'm not blaming you, you want to get revenue. Please don't think that. But you still need to think this is a small residential street, and it's the only place you can get in or out. Thank you.
Councillor, this was the point I made earlier. Regarding the licensing objectives, the comments of car parking are not relevant, those to the license. Mr. Alexander was, I think, the chap's name. He was due to speak after Miss Thomas at the start. So perhaps we could go to him.
Yeah, the points that Ted raised about what's happened up to now is fair enough, that it's been done respectfully. But what we're worried about is once the law has changed, once the rule has changed, that maybe these committee members will leave in the future, next 5 years, maybe someone else will take control, maybe the attitude will change, we don't know. Once the precedent's been set, then anything can happen. That's the point.
Mr. Alexander, essentially at the moment, this is a member's license. So you're right, the committee members are relevant for that license, but there is going to be a designated person if this were to be granted, and it would be that specific person. If they were to move on, they would have to be swapped out and changed for another person who qualifies effectively to be that person.
But there won't be any control of who's buying it, will it? If it's just an open license, it could be any member of the public from anywhere. It's not who knows who or somebody that's known. It could be anyone from anywhere, anytime.
I'd just like to say, because the gentleman there said he's got a license till 1:45 now. But I'm
1:45.
not being funny, but it doesn't state that in what we read. So, you know, so if it's 1:45, why does, for another thing is, if he's got it till that time, why are we here today? We don't want a license until 1 o'clock. You know, at the weekends, and we don't want it any later than 11 o'clock. That's ample. We're in a residential street. It's going to cause aggro. We only, you know, we don't want noise going up the street, taxis coming down, minibuses coming down. We've got work the next morning. I mean, if it's these festivals, 4 or 6 a year, we don't mind that. We've put up with that for nearly the past 20 years since we've there. We don't mind that. But what we are saying is we don't want it any later than 11 normally, because by the time they come out, it's 11:30, 12 o'clock. That's quite late enough for somebody to be walking past your house up the street, shouting and screaming, cars and everything, tooting and whatever, because they do. They wait on the corner when they come out. I mean, you know, do you want me to bring a video down and show you? I mean, I don't know what he's saying. He doesn't live in the street. He's down in the rugby club. We get the noise from there. And all I'm saying is if he's got a license till 1:45, why is he asking for a further license till 1 o'clock? It doesn't make sense to me.
Sorry, just to clarify, our current license is 1:45 on the weekends. We're asking for a reduction in that.
Yeah, but why you're asking for a reduction?
Reduction.
Well, I don't understand it then. Why, you know,
Well, it's 1:45 now. We're asking for a reduction.
it's one, right. They want, I know, I can understand you want to change for a premises like, and another thing is, until we saw a gentleman up the road and to tell Di that this was happening, you've put notices when there's anything on the, like the lamppost as you coming up from the rugby club, or maybe at the top of the street. None of this was highlighted that you were going to be changing the premises license or any license. So why, we are your next door neighbours. And we weren't even told anything about this unless somebody had seen it online. If you don't look online, how do we know you're going to change anything?
We did everything we were told we were supposed to do, i.e. it cost us something like £600 to advertise in the paper. Sorry, can I answer your
Yeah,
question?
sorry. You didn't notify his next door neighbour, because I'm his next door neighbour.
At the time, use the hand, wait for your opportunity. Okay. Now, to deal with that point and your point as well, the matter has been brought to this committee. It would have not got to this committee if it hadn't been advertised correctly. It went into the papers, but the notice went on to a post in the correct place. So it would, if it had not been correctly advertised, then be here. It would have been pushed back and the applicant would have had to be reapplied. in a month or month later, whenever that the time rolls as to the application being successfully and correctly made. Now, sorry, Chair. I know that Councillor Jones did raise a hand a few moments ago. However, the normal procedure is the officers, the representatives, the applicant. Then at the close, any responsible authorities would have the opportunity, i.e. the police, the fire, pollution. They're not here, they've made no representation. So we're not going to hear from them again. I don't believe the licensing officers are going to have anything further to say. So I propose that Miss Councillor Jones, don't worry, that's why I specifically commented about you, for the councillor to have her opportunity. And then members.
Gentleman on the end indicated.
There we are. Councillor Jones and then the gentleman. Save a repetition effectively. Unless members would hear any more information, then effectively the applicant would close.
Okay. Mine is actually clarification, 2 points. You mentioned there's a responsible person, a licensee, but they're not always on the premises, so you can't say that one person, they will have overall responsibility, but I'm assuming on a day-to-day, you can't have somebody there 7 days a week and all the hours that they're open. And the other point is that the solicitor made is it was done correctly, and I agree it was done correctly, but I think what the residents were trying to say is the actual notice, not the one in the post, because not everybody these days buys the post. It was actually down in the rugby club on the notification down there. So unless you were a member of the rugby club or chose to walk your dog down there, you didn't actually see it. And I think their point was quite pertinent. I know in planning, they only have to write each side or something, and they do put site notices up. But I think with licensing, it's slightly different, and it's something that needs to be taken up perhaps elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just check with the officers that the notice did go out in the appropriate manner, and it was in the location it was supposed to be. So it is covered. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. On the application I was shown, or was emailed to me, we've talked a lot about the licensing finishing at 1 and the drinking up time to 1:30. And then they've also, in that application, asked for late night refreshment license. So they're actually going to keep going on till 2:30, not drinking necessarily, but the people who have been drinking can hang around there till 2:30. Now, that is really stretching the public nuisance aspect of people wandering through the streets.
Sorry, sir, I think you're mistaken with the time in there. It was, I do believe, 1:30. Well, the application, that's for clarity. Thank you. And we can now confirm with you the timing then. I hope that hour less than pleases you. But to confirm, the application that the members have and the members will consider and decide upon is the one that I've stated, 1:30.
So is that the late night refreshment hours as well?
Yes. So to go through it, because of course, as we talked about very early on, there's deregulation up until 11 o'clock. So the licensing inspector is ending after 1 second past 11. So for Monday to Thursday, it's till midnight. So for an hour, effectively. And then Friday to Sunday takes it to 1:30 a.m. Late night refreshment, that's what we're talking about. Late night refreshment is hot food.
Yeah, so they won't be serving alcohol after 12, you're saying?
On The alcohol,
Because I don't see the point in asking for a late night refreshment if you're open till that time anyway. You know, and that's why when I read it, I thought, well, they're going to be open till 2:30. They might stop serving alcohol, but then people will be hanging around. That's what to me, the application meant.
so the alcohol is on page 21 and the late night refreshment is on page 20. So the late night refreshment would be sold for half an hour longer, if you like, on a Friday. It's the 1 a.m, Saturday 1 a.m, Sunday 1 a.m. Late night refreshment, food, 30 minutes longer.
But if their licensing goes on till 1 o'clock anyway, they have a drinking up period anyway, don't they? So what is the requirement then for a late night refreshment?
Who wants to comment?
Just to clarify, with late night refreshment, it's not just food, it's hot drinks as well. So generally what licenses do is they have that facility for hot drinks and possibly food sometimes up until close. So say someone was leaving, they wanted to have a coffee or a tea or wanted to take away food. I'm not sure if you're doing provision of food. That option is there. It's not, it's not for any other reason.
Perhaps you'd like to clarify.
Yeah, I
what
mean, to
exactly-
be honest, regarding the licensing application, we don't tend to serve any sort of hot food. We have just followed the guidelines, just in case we did. We've got no intention to serve hot food. It's just we've sort of tried to match our existing license as closely as possible. So there's certain things you guys think we're asking for, but we've already got them. We've only done this once again because we've been asked to make things easier for us and licensing when we have our big events. I'm just trying to be as clear as I can, the big events that keep the club going so that we can provide what we do for bikeability, for the young children of Dunvant. We've got no leisure centres like there are in different parts of Swansea. Okay, we've got the rugby club. So these big events are what keep us going. That's the main reason we're applying for this license. Okay, so the 362 days, 61 days of the year where we don't have a lot of non-members coming down, I don't envisage any change. It's just gives us the ability, for example, on Guy Fawkes night, to serve people who are not known to us instead of refusing them, which causes more trouble by refusing people when they've come down from maybe Swansea Uplands, but we don't know them, so we can't serve them a pint of beer. This is what this new license is all about. Nothing really will change. Nothing. But we are, as a committee, more than happy. We are very amenable. I am more than happy for you guys. Take Alan Bevan's number. He's the honorary secretary. We work very closely together. If you've got an issue with anything, come and talk to us. There's a new young committee running the club now, and we will sit and we will talk to you about any issues you have. Just like the lady that complained directly to Alan just last week. That's been dealt with. Please come and speak to us. If someone parks across your drive, we will deal with it. We'll find that person. We'll get them to move their car. Not that we have to, but we will do that for our community.
Just like to sum up now, please. Okay, just sum up briefly what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, and then we'll go into recess, okay?
Okay, yeah, I mean, hopefully I sort of clarified it then. We've been asked to change our license, so it's easier for licensing when it comes to these big events, and it's easier for us as a committee to manage these big events because it is difficult. Do we know this person? Oh yeah, I know so-and-so, so we've got to hold up the bar then until, yeah, oh yeah, I do know him. You know, it makes things very, very difficult on these big events. And that's the purpose of the new license, not to open later. We've got no intention of opening later. I like to be in bed tucked up myself by 11. On these big events, I'm falling asleep because it's usually myself or Alan or Anthony who will be the new licensee that locks up because that's what we do. Okay. And we do our best to try and make sure that the people that leave, We ask them when they leave just to be quiet to the residents. And if we find out, like we did the other day, those people have already been spoken to. And, you know, when we pull someone in, we don't mess about.
Yes, now with our legal representative to make a decision. The decision will come out in 4 to 5 working days. Okay, thank you, everyone. Yes,
as I say.
I know. You've got squatters' rights. But squatters' rights on it. Definitely.